Did you know that their students are sociopathic sheeps? They are not enlightened by worshipping other sociopathic daygame coaches. Later in the video, you will learn about two different types of audiences, the enlightened versus the sociopathic sheeps, why other coaches try to appeal to their sociopathic sheep audience with infield worship and alcohol in the bedroom, escalating super hard in their sociopathic daygame bootcamps. I'll tell you a story first that makes more sense. At the end of this video, you would find out whether you are an enlightened daygamer who doesn't worship, but able to learn from me and get faster results that way, or are you a sheep? So watch all the way to the end to find out. I was talking to a person I knew for many years, an Indian person, who bought my Elite 30 course. He was recommending me to his white friend in my Outer Circle free Facebook group. Join if you haven't already to get non-stop updates. However, his white friend only listens to a coach that is super good looking, who has overcomplicated Asperger's tactics. He is 10 out of 10 and looks who is taller. His friend literally dismissed me. The same thing happened with my former London student. I'll get more into that later on. For the last preview testimonial, that guy had 9 fuck buddies for daygame and a 5-some. But this white friend of that Indian guy dismissed it because I am not a tall and strong looking coach. I'll explain as you watch this entire video all the way. You would learn why this is happening. Even the London student, after his 10 fuck buddies, 5-some, and 2 models, and had a model girlfriend, I believe he went back to worshipping white dating coaches because he was a sheep. It was the same identical good-looking white coach because I saw him liking this good-looking white dating coach's Facebook post. This white dating coach isn't James Tusk, but better looking than him. Dude, I got you 10 fuck buddies, a 5-some, 2 models, 1 model girlfriend, better looking than all white daygame coaches. But you still worship afterwards. His sheep worship in the beginning almost ended his life. He worshipped London daygame. And he also worshipped Todd Valentine a little bit. But what they're teaching does not work for him until I got him laid, because I changed his social media just a little bit and got him his first lay. Only then was he enlightened. I do not dislike this student, but respected how well he adapted to my coaching, but was not surprised that once a sheep, always a sheep. That's the problem. I have students that are not enlightened. They get over 10 lays from my coaching because I installed the Tesla battery, the big one that finally gets them laid. All the other coaches only install a small AAA batteries, which is not enough of a charge to get them that lay. But after my coaching, they get kicked out for being evil sheeps worshipping. This did not happen with the London student, but happened to many others who began to ego trip. The London student was always grateful and didn't ego trip. He was a good Jedi, not a Sith. They often go back to white dating coaches or anybody else. Doesn't have to be white to be sociopathic. That has a halo effect, which I'll talk about later on, so stay tuned. I know it sounds crazy because we're so used to hearing about that if a coach is strong, tall, or have a race advantage or perceived race, they must be good for daygame. This is automatic thinking that sheeps have, but my students who are enlightened do not have this thinking. So when they try to appeal to their audience, how great they are and how their students have been fields, so they are a god. Of course, I am not only talking about white dating coaches. It could be any race that sheeps will worship. That sounds like a sociopathic, narcissistic megalomaniac, sociopath cult leader. What they are really saying is that their students worship them like sheeps. The far left has this sociopathic woke style of thinking. The far right has this: you must do this, you must do that because it is moral. Regardless, while not talking about politics, but their brain chemistry is different for the brain structure, that there's a separation between the enlightened and also the worshipping sheeps. In the Bible, Moses went up the mountain to collect the tablets, while the idol-worshipping sociopath sheeps made a golden calf or a cow to worship. While ignoring God, they have to worship. It's part of their DNA for human nature. Moses' team of enlightened people slaughtered half of the idol-worshipping sheeps of sociopaths, just like that Indian guy's white friend, metaphorically speaking. He is a sheep. But sheeps cannot help what they are. Even if they get more than 10 lays here, they will still worship over there again later on, because they cannot help it. And while you think that is important, I'm going to share 3 dirty secrets with you today. That's going to revolutionize the way you think about my students who are enlightened. Even though I have a no worship policy here, how come my students do not worship me at all? So what does the enlightened students understand? That is getting my students this kind of results. They want that kind of result without worshiping. They just do what I say and get laid without worshiping. In their mind, the last thing they want to do is to worship me, because that's an extra step. They see the student results, and they also see me as Phil Jackson, the best basketball coach in the world, and they want the results for themselves. They have a what's in it for me mentality. It's their sociopath sheep's audience needs to worship the halo effect. The halo effect is taking one trait of the coach, whether it's muscles or height or race or perceived race, and assuming they are good because of that one trait. So they don't have critical thinking. This is why dating coaches push a lot of infields and student infields too. They want to shut down your brain with the authority switch. Their coaching does not work without alcohol and heavy escalation in the bedroom, which is really immoral and unethical because she cannot fully consent. However, for my students, they don't give a fuck about worshiping me. So I don't have the same authority switch, which is based on the procreation switch. It's evolutionary psychology. If they are showing in fields, in your brain you are hardwired to procreate. So you think it must be the solution. Even if they are deceiving you with alcohol in the bedroom and heavy escalation to create Stockholm syndrome, they will see an in-field and think that it leads to the procreation. Their procreation switch in their brain is triggered or switched on for neuroscience, which can be manipulated. The only thing I have is student results, which the enlightened sees it and says I want that too. Just tell me what needs to be done. While this is a procreation switch too, but nowhere as strong as worshipping in fields. Since the sheeps will pay any amount of money if they worship in fields that uses alcohol in the bedroom, like sociopaths, to escalate super hard the consent out of her until they created Stockholm syndrome. Stockholm syndrome means the hostage will side with their captors as a survival mechanism. You are paying $5,600 to learn the alcohol crutch as they are shoving boot camps down your throat. I don't want to sound like the far right where you say, you must not do that or should not do that. But my students who are enlightened think that is immoral and unethical too. So the first dirty secret is the enlightened versus the sheeps. The big idea here is my students does not understand why you need to worship me. For the sheeps, however, they need to worship to listen. They are born that way because they have sociopathic traits with narcissism, which makes them delusional. They are easy to gaslight by other sociopathic daygame coaches, telling them half-truths. Once the coach shows in fields or a student in fields, they bow down and worship, even though it is misleading, because their students use alcohol in the bedroom and escalate super hard in their boot camps. This is borderline sexual assault game. It is totally unethical, but they don't know any better because they are impressionable sheeps. Since their audience is like the far left, sociopathic, manipulative, triggered sheeps, their brain cannot understand that this is unethical because they can't feel guilt or remorse with that sociopath death stare their entire audience have. Being total sheeps, like I said about the far left mentality, even if they don't have the same beliefs, those people don't feel guilt or remorse at all, just like the sociopathic coaches they worship. And they always lower their head down just a slightly bit worshipping, submitting to authority like good sociopath sheeps. The more sociopathic their sociopathic daygame coach acts, the more these sheeps looks down with their heads, not knowing they are sociopathic sheeps with the death stare of a sociopath. That is how they think, but my students are different. They are not sociopathic and evil. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure some of my students are emotional and sociopathic, but are not evil. It's like the movie Star Wars, the Jedi versus the Sith. The Sith with the red lightsabers are the evil guys who are emotional and get triggered and all they think about is ego tripping and manipulation. My students, if I tell them to use alcohol in the bedroom, they'll tell me to fuck off because they can feel a sense of remorse and that would be wrong. This is important because the sheeps are exactly like women. They are the ultimate for female nature. Women always looks at a guy's relative SMV to hers, exactly identical to the sheep, who looks at the coach's muscles or height or perceived race. The second is emotional reasoning for women. But these guys get triggered and emotional just like women. Lastly, logic just like the sheeps. Women are not always logical. Not to be politically incorrect, but it's kind of true in my teaching experience. If my students repeats the social skills flow drill in a triangle 50 times in a row, she has no idea he is using that algorithm because she only thinks of relative SMV and emotions. It's the same way with their audience of sheeps. They can't think cause and effect. I often write out the cause and effect to show my students why their decisions are wrong. After calculating a few of those, they always end up stuck due to delusions. At the same time, other sociopathic dating coaches, they gaslight and manipulate their dumb sociopath audience with half-truths, then use the authority switch through in fields. The more in fields they use to shut down your mind, the more money they make on boot camps, because their day game courses doesn't work without the alcohol crutch, which you learn in their boot camps in the bedroom, getting her drunk and escalating super hard. The second dirty secret is their students are sociopaths. That is why they are delusional, because their excessive ADHD causes low self-esteem, which raises their ego. Since they are weak-minded people, they need to worship because they have a broken life. This is why people fall into cults. They need to be led by worshiping. There is a no worship policy here, and this is not a cult. The main thing to understand here is that these are just mini cults for other dating coaches. When you look at my coaching and all my advice videos, it is anti-cult programming. You are being brainwashed, and I am brainwashing you. This means for the 10 traits of a sociopath, one of them is telling you stories. That sounds believable at that time, but it's not true. The coach is delusional and believes everything they say is their truth. but they try to manipulate your logic and emotions, brainwashing you. Nobody taught them how to brainwash, as cults do not have a training manual. They do it naturally because they are Machiavellian manipulative sociopaths. What they think about all day is how to manipulate their audience's limited perceptions and bowing down to their authority switch. They often have sociopathic eyes, a death stare, psycho eyes for other dating coaches and cult leaders. Their mask of sanity. The third dirty secret is you are clearly going to alcohol camps. Is that even ethical game? You are not learning any sort of game or social intelligence. If it doesn't work without alcohol maxing in the bedroom with heavy escalation, then it does not work. My student has 10 fuck buddies for the last guy in London, 5 2 models and 1 model girlfriend for day game. My students get repeated results if they're a pickup artist, even without a boot camp. Not all my students are pickup artists. They just want to do this to get more lays. But some of the other students really want to master this. They come to me. It's not just a one-off lay in the boot camp, using alcohol maxing by learning sociopath game, then escalating super hard in the bedroom. If they have multiple lays, most likely they trained under me before. But most won't get any more results after the boot camps using the alcohol crutches. If you have to escalate that hard for intoxicated women, she is not converted yet for the mid-game or instant date to pull. This is why worship equals romantic flirt courses. Romantic flirt courses leads to boot camps because you are stuck. Boot camps leads to the alcohol crutch mixed with heavy bedroom escalation or sexual assault style game. That leads to Stockholm Syndrome where the hostage sides with the captors. It's a survival mechanism, not retention game. That is what they teach, all the in-ear coaching, all the romance, push, pulls, doesn't work without alcohol and heavy bedroom escalation. My students will not use alcohol at all. There is a no alcohol policy, and I don't focus on bedroom escalation, just converting her with maneuver, flirting, without romantic flirts, sexualizing it to the max and dealing with her sexual objections. This way, my student doesn't need to play a huge numbers game, go direct for compliments, use mystery method style bullshit tactics, or use romantic flirts, alcohol maxing, bedroom escalation sociopath game. Since my students doesn't need alcohol, so they don't use crutches. Their results are sustainable, meaning they can get it over and over again. Not just a one-off, in a sociopath alcohol bedroom heavy escalation camp. Since their students are sociopaths, they would say, will alcohol loosen the situation? Make it easier because it's more social. I tell them they are fucking crazy creeps when it all costs sociopaths. They don't get it because sociopaths don't feel guilt or remorse. They won't even know they are taught poison or dangerous techniques, being dumb and impressionable sheeps. This is key because my Chinese student, who got 15 lays, 5 models, 5 white girls, 2 actresses, and married one of them, he was worshipping white dating coaches, but none of their stuff was working. You have to DHV, you have to sexualize. When he changed to what I taught him, it always works 100%. When he did that first following white dating coaches, he always failed 100% of the time. I told him Phil Jackson is a good coach, just do what I say. You don't always have to worship mentor mentality. Now he is happily married in October 2023 and making more money than ever, being a power couple. Now, I know what you're thinking. It's that you need a boot camp. You still need to worship, because if they can do it, you can do it. Well, the tricky thing is that it is not true. They think their students can do it in the boot camp. You mean the one with alcohol? And teaching you to escalate super hard. So without this alcohol game crutch, you cannot do it, can you? So do they really have any sort of game? Or are they cheating sociopaths without any ethics or remorse? They don't realize it is borderline sexual assault game because sociopaths feels no guilt. I had a former student who is a sociopath. He told me he doesn't know what guilt feels like. That is why he screws everyone over, because his brain doesn't feel it. Of course, he screwed me over too. That is what sociopaths do. I told him was this divine retribution. He is going through a divorce right now, even if he also got married with my training. Yes, lots of students got married already, if that is what you are looking for, even if I don't advertise it very often. Since they are more interested in getting more lays, fuck buddies, girlfriends, 3-somes, 5-somes, even sometimes married. And so I've created this elite bundle too. You can get my coaching and a year of consultation, even practicing the social skills flow drill with elite access. That is part of the package, plus the social calibrations body language. Plus you have 10 Skypes. And I, as the best day game coach in the world, with nearly 600 laid and pull testimonials for day game. Nobody cares about romantic flirt day game courses. That doesn't work, scamming you, getting you stuck. Just to go to day game boot camps, to learn how to brute forcing it with alcohol, heavy bedroom escalation sociopath camps. All the infields of the students were just a circus, a farce, when what is behind the scenes is just alcohol maxing, which you do not see. What I do is I make sure you do not worship me. Since you don't, I yell a little bit more with discipline, so I can mold you like a soldier. You already submitted to the big soldier of other coaches, which does not get you laid. But do war crimes like alcohol maxing and Stockholm Syndrome, You don't have to worship here to get results, as I've proven because I designed my business to not let students worship in fields. If you need in fields to worship me to learn from me, you are not enlightened. Your brain structure is that of a sheep. Fuck off. I'm General John Elite. The general doesn't have to be the highest SMV soldier or commander. Some leads from the front with their war crimes. I built my business to lead from the back, like a general, not a lowly ranked commander. I have lead more to victory than they have, 15 times more in fact. So how could they be the best? I did an experiment. What if I could create a business that doesn't depend on worshiping in fields? Would it even work during the pandemic? It worked perfectly. So that is my business model. Not worshiping, then filling boot camps. When the pandemic hit, I changed my business model. It worked like a charm, so I don't have to waste time using in fields for worship. I could just focus on the enlightened daygamers instead, then cut out the sociopath sheeps. It sure led to nearly 600 laid and poll testimonials for daygame. I'd rather give you the quick cure faster so I can get more laid testimonials instead of teaching boot camps one by one, like their sociopathic romantic flirt, alcohol and heavy escalation, unethical sociopath camps for sociopath sheeps. Even if they sold 10 boot camps, teaching it in the summer that cost $5,600 each, the most you would make is $56,000 that year. After all that work, just to teach students to be unethical in the bedroom with alcohol, I make back the difference by getting more students laid with the elite bundle too. So I don't have to do back-breaking labor, flying from place to place minus the expenses, teaching boot camps. Unlike them, my online coaching and daygame courses actually works year after year. Not self-declaring as the best like them, but I have actual laid testimonials that they don't have without the alcohol crutch in the bedroom for boot camps. I haven't even posted all my unreleased laid testimonials yet. That doesn't need a boot camp. The last 2 I posted for the preview series has not been released yet. I may have over 30 more than 3 times of what they have, which will be released as a preview series for testimonials. Then post a full version again later on, removing this from my playlist. I don't want to stuff my playlist like white dating coaches. So what I've done is I've made this video to show their half-truth pill, which they're willing to lie to you to manipulate you, just as they have gaslighted you completely. Their daygame courses don't work using romantic flirts that gets you stuck. Then you end up in a boot camp just to learn sociopath game of heavy escalation of drunk women. Everything before that point in the bedroom is just a circus, just for show. It doesn't work without the alcohol, heavy escalation, and Stockholm syndrome. This amount of brainwashing they do is the stuff of sociopathic cult leaders.